Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh with Severe Weather. Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you've had a blessed week. We were thinking things were going to get a little bit quieter here with this cooler weather stretch in the east, but Texas, the southern plains, and now into the southeast are going to be under the gun for not just one, but two big storms right on through the end of the weekend. A lot of severe weather is anticipated, maybe not a huge tornado outbreak, but certainly an active weather pattern with a lot of rain, with some severe weather, with big hail, all in the forecast in places that maybe aren't used to it this time of the year. And I'm talking about you in Florida. So here's a look at what I am expecting. Very active storm track. We have the first of two big storms set to move through the south here through the end of this week. And now an enhanced risk for severe weather expected across parts of central and east Texas, including the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And we're looking at another day of severe storms, pulse storms, but storms that could bring some pretty big hail to parts of central and south Florida. And as this storm tracks across the south, we'll continue to have that risk for severe weather and very heavy rain stretching into Louisiana as we get into the day tomorrow, and then into the eastern Gulf states as we get into the day on Friday. And another storm right behind it will continue that threat for severe weather in some of the same places here right through the weekend. I'm not really going to focus too much on the northern tier of the country with this video. Obviously, if you have questions or if there's anything big, I'll post it to my community page. But really, let's just do what Josh's Severe Weather does, and that's talk about that severe portion of the forecast here. So here is the water vapor image. You can see a very broad circulation over the central and southern plains with a well-defined upper level low moving into New Mexico. This has brought thunderstorms yesterday with some significant wind and hail and even a tornado over Colorado. Now it's snowing in some of these places in the higher terrain, but really you can see not one but two thunderstorm complexes tracking across the northern portions of Texas. And in between this and flow out of the southwest, we've got a narrow band here of some subsidence, some sinking air. And what that's going to do is allow things to heat up today and set the stage for a more volatile storm pattern as we get into late this afternoon into the evening hours. And these storms will continue south and east. There is some unpredictability in the timing of them and the breadth of how big this complex of storms is going to be. So we have seen severe weather chances increase as the amount of certainty is beginning to climb. But it's not that the models a few days ago didn't indicate there wouldn't be severe weather, but it was very difficult to kind of pinpoint the timing and the exact location of where those storms would set up. So obviously, we've got to keep an eye on this region, and here with this big upper level low set to track this direction. South of it, we're going to see a large area of severe weather here. So that's what we're keeping an eye on. Here is what we've had over the last couple of days or so. Let me clear that off the screen. Sorry, I'm still learning this here. All right, clear all drawings. And you can see that we had a lot of big hail over parts of West Texas last night, and even some hail here in parts of East Texas. While not a big tornado outbreak at this point, definitely that chance starts to increase as we get later to today. We've also seen a lot of hail over parts of Florida, which is a bit unusual for this time of the year, but really not just yesterday, but the day before. Some of the biggest hail that we've seen across the Florida Peninsula, 3-inch diameter hail just to the northeast of Tampa Bay in Hillsborough County in Florida. So today, chances have now increased, and we have an enhanced level 3 out of 5 severe weather risk. This was the case yesterday as well for today, but the area has grown as certainty is starting to grow as well. And this is going to include the threat for a few stronger tornadoes later today into this evening as discrete supercell storms get going ahead of our upper level low. This is Dallas. This is Fort Worth. You're kind of on the northern fringe of things. This is the Abilene area. So really the I-20 corridor on south is the area to focus on for locally intense tornadoes here. And this may be a situation where we don't have a ton of tornadoes, but what does form could end up being a stronger tornado. We saw that last Tuesday in parts of central Oklahoma. The threat for tornadoes was not super high, but what did form did end up being intense. So that is what I'm concerned about for sure. And there is some risk of a tornado even into the evening and overnight hours farther south and east into Louisiana. Not a big chance, but a chance nonetheless. Gorilla hail certainly in the forecast here from Dallas on westward. and even as far north as Wichita Falls, maybe even into the far southern parts of Oklahoma. So we definitely have that risk for intense hail later today into tonight. There'll be a chance for hail even this morning, but the bigger chance is going to be in the mid and late afternoon and on. And there is a threat for severe wind as as these supercells combine into a more organized storm complex. By that time, we lose discrete portions of the supercells and we have more of a wind threat, a linear threat for severe wind. But certainly we could see gusts of 70 to 80 miles per hour from Fort Worth on east and southeast into Tyler, and maybe getting close to College Station here later on tonight. We're not done today, though. Tomorrow, more severe weather possible farther south and east, and I will zoom in on the southeast to show you that. And then we have a second storm, which is going to move in here on Friday and Friday afternoon and evening. Once again, a threat for some severe weather in north central Texas, but this risk actually continues down through San Antonio, Laredo, and Del Rio, and even into northeastern Mexico. And I do believe that that will continue to move eastward with time, where we have the threat for severe weather over the weekend across the Gulf South, so east of Texas. Now, here's a look at the Gulf South. You can see a slight risk has been posted once again for a good chunk of the Florida Peninsula. Not a really big chance for tornadoes at this point. Tonight, though, of course, we have to watch out for that threat in Louisiana and southwestern Mississippi, but hail could occur once again, and it could be intense over much of the peninsula of Florida, a little farther east than what we saw the last couple of days. This includes Orlando and Ocala and Gainesville, but also all the way down to Lake Okeechobee, and it does include the East Coast, all the way down into St. Lucie County and maybe into Palm Beach County as well. There's a threat for strong wind in this region as well, but primarily hail, and that is due to some colder than average air aloft at about 20 to 30,000 feet, where we start to see those updrafts producing that hail. Now, as we get to tomorrow, we see an enhanced, not really enhanced, but a slight risk for severe weather that's enhanced from yesterday. That chance has gone up, and that includes southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, the western and central panhandle of Florida, and even the southwestern tip of Georgia here late in the day tomorrow. And there will be some tornadoes possible here from around Denham Springs and LaPlace, Louisiana, eastward through New Orleans, through Slidell, through Gulfport, Mobile, and all the way eastward to about Fort Walton Beach and Crestview, Florida. There will be some potential for hail as well, but I think primarily we've got to be significantly concerned about damaging wind and a few tornadoes across this entire region. And then day three, a marginal risk at this point on Friday for some severe weather. I do think somewhere in here we do have the potential where this chance could climb into the slight risk category, probably not enhanced at this point. And then as we get beyond, right now the predictability for organized severe weather is low, but I do think we will have some severe weather both days of the weekend as well. Here's a look at why. This is the European. This is the upper level chart. You see the upper level low here dropping southeastward. And then continuing into Missouri and Arkansas here Thursday night, Friday. So we'll have heavy rain all the way into the Tennessee Valley and the lower Ohio Valley. But notice right behind it, so you've got this big trough right here, but right behind it, another piece of energy comes straight on down out of this next wave. And this could be a little bit farther south and a little bit slower to evolve. And when we see an upper level low like this all the way in Louisiana on Sunday, and the potential for it to phase here, we have the potential for a big East Coast storm, but where the flow aloft is out of the south to southwest in this region in here, there will be faster wind flow aloft, and that could fuel more thunderstorms, which could turn severe. And that even could include the Carolinas and Virginia as we get into Sunday night. As this moves farther north and east, it's cooler, so we just have a big rainstorm at that point. And oh, by the way, the European does have a cutoff low moving into California, where it's going to start the week off warm. This doesn't look like a big outbreak for California, but when you see something like this on the map moving into the southwest, then we have to keep an eye on the weekend after next. So around the 5th, 6th, and 7th for potentially some severe weather over the southern plains as things start to heat back up. Here's a European model. You can see I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but very active down south, lots of rain. First low tracks up towards the Great Lakes. This is the pattern we saw over the winter time. A lot of rain for the East Coast expected here on Friday and Friday night. Storm number 2 dives farther south into the Gulf states, and Houston gets in on the action here Saturday night. And then Sunday across the Gulf states and Florida, we're looking at likely some severe weather down in here. And then as that low tracks up the East Coast Sunday night, we could have severe weather over the coastal plain of the Carolinas, maybe even southeastern Virginia here in the warm sector. But primarily, this is going to be a big rainmaker across New England and the Northeast late Sunday night and especially on Monday. Behind that, a quieter weather pattern, but it will be cool. And then we've got to keep an eye on this storm system once it moves out onto the plains. The Europeans already jumping on some action here next Friday afternoon and evening, which could be severe as the dry line gets going here over Texas. But that's a little bit far out to really get too cute with at this point. Lots of rain expected here. We're going to see widespread areas of 2 to 4 inches of rain over the southeast, over the eastern Ohio Valley, and over the northeast. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but obviously as threats for severe weather climb, we'll get into more of that. The satellite photo shows our storm complex bringing heavy cloud cover into southern Oklahoma, northeast Texas. Behind it, you see explosive development of storms here later this afternoon into tonight over central and northeastern Texas. That will move eastward. It'll pick up storm fuel here over the Gulf, and we'll see active weather tomorrow over Louisiana and Mississippi. And behind it, a break coming Thursday night into Friday, and we'll have additional storm coverage here popping up in the afternoon. You can already see kind of the beginning of the next outbreak. Our model doesn't go out that far, but we'll get more into that here in Friday's video as well. Things are relatively quiet up until about lunchtime. Then we see more storms over the Red River Valley, and then likely some big hail with storms popping up north and west of the Metroplex later today. This is about 5 o'clock Central. I'm sorry, I don't have the timestamp, something that my product doesn't provide to me, but this is 6, 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I'll zoom in here in a little bit, but you can see this line of storms drops southeast. There'll probably be a few tornadoes in this area as well. This is this evening. I'm pulling up a sounding to show you that there is a tornado risk as winds will be veering quickly with height from southeasterly to southwesterly. It'll be a moist profile, and we see a big drop here, but not a humongous drop here of temperature aloft. The bigger that drop, the more likely it's hail. The smaller, the more likely we see tornadoes. But either way, there is that chance for a few tornadoes, and some of them could be on the strong side, mainly the early part of tonight, but still overnight, keep an eye on things as storms move farther south and east towards the Gulf Coast region here by daybreak tomorrow, and then storms continue into Louisiana and farther east. We could see a few heavier storms as well over Oklahoma and Arkansas. I don't think widespread severe weather, but keep an eye on things tomorrow evening east of Little Rock over to about Memphis and the Delta region of Mississippi as well. Probably not a big outbreak of tornadoes, but don't be caught off guard. There certainly is somewhat of a possibility. Now, this is CAPE, convective available potential energy. This is storm fuel, and you can see the amount of storm fuel really does jump up here this afternoon as amounts go over 3,000 joules per kilogram in north central parts of Texas. So a lot of fuel is here for big time storms. And then as they move southeast, obviously we lose that with the heating of the day tonight. But as we get into tomorrow, there is storm fuel as well over Louisiana, Mississippi that could certainly bring some intense downdrafts. And then lesser amounts of that available potential energy here as we get into the nighttime. But there is some instability over Arkansas, Mississippi, the Delta region. And, you know, I would not be shocked to see if this model ends up correct, somewhat of an upgrade to a slight risk all the way up to about the Memphis area here for tomorrow evening. The significant tornado parameter is climbing as well over Texas. You can kind of see it's maximized here at about 3. So there is a potential for a stronger tornado or two in this region here. And you can see actually it keeps climbing in central Texas, in the heart of Texas. We see higher amounts early this evening. So between about 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock, I think, is your best chance for seeing a strong tornado or two. And these will move southward. And we have seen in history in Texas, southward moving storms have produced some big time problems. There was an EF5 tornado in Gerald, Texas here several years ago with a southward moving storm. Not saying that's the case tonight, but we've seen some really funky stuff happen in Texas. And this setup certainly does have some resemblance to that one, although it's not the exact same. So just be prepared for that. I really hope that that's not the case. But it is definitely something to keep an eye on. And then overnight tonight and tomorrow morning, we're keeping an eye on South Louisiana before that risk for tornadoes does drop off some. It does start to come up a little bit in Mississippi tomorrow night. So Jackson on Northwest, keep an eye on things, but I don't think the models are going to nail this down exactly as we have multiple storm tracks here. But here's a look at our rotating updrafts here where the helicity is highest. And you can see multiple storm tracks that will likely produce hail, strong winds, and maybe a few tornadoes across this region here, right on through Texas, and to a lesser extent over Louisiana as well. All right, let's zoom in on the area I'm most concerned with, and let's go closer to lunchtime here. And you can see there will be some potential hail and strong winds along the Red River, Wichita Falls, and Sherman. As we get, though, to about 2 and 3 o'clock, that's when things start growing in intensity, south and east of Wichita Falls and east of Abilene. So we have to keep an eye on things in places like Jacksboro and Cisco and Ranger, Texas, near Weatherford as well, right around 5, 6 o'clock when people are getting home from work. Also on the northeast side of the Metroplex towards Frisco and Plano, we have to keep an eye on things. But I think as we get to about 7 and 8 o'clock, that's when storms will be most dangerous. And I think there could be some very big hail around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I also think there could be stronger tornadoes around Cleburne and on southward towards Waco, Killeen, even towards Gerald, Texas, Round Rock, and Georgetown as well. So the area of tornado threat, I think, is going to be a little farther south of the Metroplex, and as well as some of these storms out ahead to the south and east of Tyler. We have to keep an eye on things as well. Can this model change? Absolutely. We could see this looking a little bit different, but this is the area of greatest concern. Then we'll see weakening with time as things move off to the south and east. All right, let's look at the rest of the southeast real quick before I wrap things up here. And we can see here's Storm Complex 1 moving into Arkansas, Louisiana. And you can kind of see things building up here with time tomorrow morning. So morning severe weather will be possible around Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Slidell, into Biloxi, and then in the afternoon carrying into the Florida Panhandle. And Florida is going to stay active as well as we have warm, unstable air moving into the Florida Panhandle as well. But notice it'll be pretty wet Thursday night into Friday, and there is a slight chance we could see a little severe weather along the coastal plain here as well. Forecast radar here in the southeast. We may have some pop-ups here south and east of Columbia this afternoon into the Savannah area, maybe some isolated hail and strong winds right through about 8 o'clock. The bigger threat down across Alabama and Florida, though. And as we look at tomorrow, we see this active stretch of weather over southeast Louisiana starting early in the day, 9 or 10 o'clock, and then continuing into the Mobile area around lunchtime. And it's possible this could end up tracking faster than what the models are showing me. So be prepared a little bit earlier than what you see on here. Georgia, a lot of rain tomorrow, but the severe weather chance is pretty limited, mainly into the southwestern part of the state. And then we could see some additional stronger storms Thursday night moving into Alabama and Mississippi with a lower chance for severe weather at that point. We do have storm fuel that's going to build up here across the southeast. It's nothing like what we see in Texas, but keep an eye on things here. Notice how mostly we're dealing with heavy rain at this point. Also, we do have a small tornado risk here. Not tiny, but a small chance over South Louisiana here tomorrow morning, and continuing into the Mobile Bay, Gulf Shores area around lunchtime Thursday, and maybe the Florida Panhandle after that. Also the peninsula, we have to keep an eye on some things as well. It's been pretty active here, and I think that is the case as well. Sorry, I jumped the gun there. Finally, the risk for some rotating storms is not super high, but we see that in South Louisiana and South Mississippi. We also see it across the middle of the peninsula, but there could be a few rotating updrafts in these areas here. So some isolated severe weather certainly is going to be possible. Once we get past this outbreak here that moves out, we see a quieter day on Saturday for the southeast, except maybe South Florida. But Saturday night into Sunday, things get really busy again. The next low tracks over South Louisiana, and we see widespread heavy rain and embedded strong thunderstorms, which will continue Sunday night into the Carolinas and northern Florida. This timing can change, but we'll keep an eye on things for you guys here, of course. Showed you that already. And then we'll look really closely here at Florida as well. And let me get this brought up so we can see this afternoon. More intense storms expected to fire up east of Tampa along 75 around 6 and 7. Some of these could produce some very big hail again south and west of Orlando, which includes Disney World, by the way, around 7 and 8 o'clock here tonight, and the Okeechobee area. Then we get a break, and then more stronger storms are expected to fire up tomorrow. They'll move faster tomorrow, so less of a chance of large hail, but maybe more of a chance for strong wind through about 7, 8, and 9 o'clock. And that gets all the way up to Daytona and all the way up to near Jacksonville. You can see the rotation on some of these storms. Also, obviously, we have the threat for some big hail, maybe around Lakeland and down to Lake Okeechobee, and also up to the north and east of Orlando, right up I-4 and up to 95 as well. That was a lot to talk about. I didn't even really get a chance to talk about the West or the North, but I wanted to focus on severe weather today. If you have any questions, happy to answer those for you. I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate your attention. If you're a local subscriber and you've been on regularly, thank you so much for your support. It means a lot to me. If you could subscribe and you're a new visitor here, please do that. Share with your friends as well. As I give you the technical breakdowns here of the weather. So not only do I thank you, but I just want to give all the glory to God who allows me to do this every day. God gives me peace. Isaiah 26:3 says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you." And because I've been given the gift, accepted the gift that God has given me to accept him, I've been given that peace, knowing that I've got the strength and the courage to do what I do every day. That's to share the weather and to share my faith. I'm happy to pray for you if you are struggling in your faith. If you're not a believer, again, not going to pass any judgment on you. I've gone 30 years of my life without being a Christian, but I have learned compassion. I have learned patience, and I have learned empathy for others through my walk in faith. And if you are walking in faith but struggling, you are not alone. And I just wanted to let you know that today. So I'm happy to pray for you. Please feel free to list those prayer requests. I think it means a lot for those of us that are believers to pray for each other. And even if you're not a believer, I'm happy to pray for you as well. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a blessed day and be safe out there. See you again in the morning.